Welcome back to Escape Reality Star Wars Talk. I'm your host, Caleb.
Hi, I'm Seth. I talk Star Wars with this man.
And this week, we are talking about a classic. At least in my opinion, we're talking about, The Phantom Menace, which is, the first of the prequel era films. And so, this is our first movie for the show.
Oh, yeah, it is, isn't it?
Yeah, we haven't talked about a movie on the show.
No, we haven't.
We've talked about shows on the show, but we haven't talked about a movie. Because no new movies have come out while we've had the show on the air.
Surprisingly.
And then like a bunch of new shows have.
Mm-hmm.
But like also no High Republic movies have come out yet. Although if the Acolyte as a show turns out well, I'm hoping we'll get some movies.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so first movie on the show. Normally before we get into things, we like to talk about what we've been up to this week. I'll let you start while I get some stuff.
So, earlier I said that I had a moment that happens in the South.
Oh yeah, you told me you had like definitely a Southerner moment.
Yeah. So yesterday I got hungry.
As one does.
Yeah. And as you know, I order food from Domino's a lot. So I go and I order one of the things I like to eat from there. And I usually get like a 2-liter like root beer or something with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I go, I do that, I place my order in, order comes. The lady shows up to the door, knocks on it, I get my food and I'm like, hey, there's no drink here, do you mind going? And she's like, oh yeah, I can go back to the store real quick and grab it for you since it's not that far away.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what, a 5-minute drive?
Yeah, it's not that far.
Yeah. And so I'm like, all right, cool. And I take my food inside and I wait for like 15, 20 minutes. I'm like, huh, that's odd. They should be back by now.
Yeah.
So I go outside because the entire time for that like 15 to 20 minutes, for some reason their car has been in my driveway. And I go and I look outside and there are 2 horses running back and forth across the street and in and out of my neighbor's yard.
And it's just like been blocking them from
and
leaving?
It's been blocking them from... And there are like 12 people out there trying to corral these horses so that they can go and get out. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. I just go back inside.
It's the fact you just accept this as making sense.
Yeah.
Oh.
Later on, she comes back, I get my drink, and she's like, yeah, I didn't know what to do about that.
To be fair, I don't think most people would.
And she's like, yeah, I called my boss. And I was like, hey, you might not believe me about this, but there's fucking horses in the road.
There's some horses out here.
Yeah. And I'm like, this makes sense. Been continuing my like Fallout journey, going through Nuka World. It's okay. Like,
you don't like Nuka World? It's okay. You already played what a lot of people consider to be the best DLC anyways. You've already done it. Most people consider Far Harbor as the best DLC. Out of all Fallout games, not just 4. So you've already like done what most people consider like the best content. I remember Nuka World not being too popular anyways. Like,
because of the frame up for it, it's like, here are these 3 raider gangs. Figure out what the fuck to do with them. And it's like, I don't care.
Because like really the excitement I think for something like Nuka World should just be the concept of, oh, an abandoned amusement park for... But no, they immediately go back into old stuff of focusing on the game, like all the stuff that Fallout here. This should be, let's make fun of corporations and their theme parks and stuff, because that's the fun part. The fact that they made a theme park about a soda. That should be...
Made a theme
yeah, if Coca-Cola made a theme park, which Coca-Cola, I mean... And like the free tours and all that is there.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people in the U.S. who are kids that live near enough to like the Atlanta area have gone to the Coca-Cola factory at some point, because it's just a big thing that, like,
Yeah. Like,
and they give you like the free Coke or whatever at the end, and then yeah, I mean, that's their like that's the closest we'll get to that. Although, I guess actually the closest we'll get to a Nuka World is actually has nothing to do with soda. It's Hershey Park. It's a theme park that is somehow based around Hershey chocolate, but really has I've been to it. It has nothing to do with Hershey chocolate other than the fact that you can find the like you can buy the chocolate at a lot of the stalls. Like it has like there's nothing branding it as specifically like if Hershey Park were to somehow get acquired by somebody not Hershey, it would be a very easy transition to just turn it into whatever theme park they want. They have some good roller coasters though. I'll give them that.
All right.
But yeah.
Yeah. I'm going through and I'm like, man, I clear out an area and I'm like, fine, I guess. It was fun to go through the area and like look at it. But I don't really give a shit about what these raider gangs are doing. Because that's not something I care for.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I've been killing so many of you motherfuckers in the Commonwealth. Why did you allow me to show up here?
Yeah, if this was going to be a problem for y'all, why'd you let me get here?
I'm like, I know the previous overboss was like an idiot who liked to show off and that this guy helped me, but like, why? Why are they're like, just divvy up the park to us in certain amounts and everything's all good? And I'm like, I cannot wait for where I get to kill all of you fuckers.
Yeah. Although
there are other fun side quests.
Yeah, there's fun stuff within it, but it's just you have to get past the main part, and it's just like the main part's the most boring part of it.
Yeah, the main like go deal with these 3 raider gangs, and I'm like, I don't want to talk to them. I don't want to see them. I don't want to look at them.
Yeah.
But everything else so far has been pretty fun, with the exception of that.
Yeah.
I got one of the unique guns, a little Western revolver, because why not? The little robot that gave it to me was like, and now we're gonna have a fun little shootout in the street. And I'm like, alright, that's cool. And I immediately blew off his arm. And I'm like, you know, gunslinger perk, maxed out, better criticals. I should have seen this coming.
I 100%ed Baldur's Gate 3 again. Woo! So now I have it 100%ed on GOG and on PlayStation 5.
I saw you with your I don't need it.
Yeah, well, so I've been planning that video for a long... Okay, context. So, Larian released has announced, and I guess it's not really released because it's still on pre-orders, the physical edition of Baldur's Gate 3, and it's like a physical deluxe, so it's the only way you can get it is the physical deluxe. You get all these like physical things that come with it, so booklets and all that cool stuff. It comes out to $79.99 before shipping. Then the shipping is $20. But also Larian is not a US based company, so you have to consider that. Like they only I think they have I think the one that's closest to us is Canadian. So even then you got to worry about shipping costs, because even Canada to US it's not cheap. So I and plus I'm buying directly from Larian. It's not like a third party situation where like Larian, I don't know, posts it on Amazon and then I'm paying Amazon and then no, money goes directly to Larian. I'm fine with that. I actually want to get the Divinity Original Sin board game, because they got a board game, and it comes with some minis and stuff that I thought where you basically play Divinity 2, the video game, but as a board game. So that'll be fun. But anyways, so for a while after I bought it, because I already bought it before I did this video, and I made sure to hide the date, by the way, on that video. I hid any important info about like my address and the date I bought it, because I showed the receipt of me buying it, so I had to hide that stuff in it. But after I bought it, I immediately had the idea of, I have bought this game 3 times now. And so I immediately thought of the SpongeBob, I don't need it, with the water.
Yeah.
And I was like, that would be a funny TikTok of me just showing that I bought this 3 times.
Yeah.
And so I had that idea, and then I was like, what would make it better, though, is if I had beaten it twice and then bought the game a 3rd time. And I think that would sell the joke even more.
Oh, I know.
And I think it does. Does it sell the joke? Like, in your opinion, does that sell the joke more?
You've got enough.
So
It's like me and guns and D&D games. You need to stop.
to be fair, this is just so it can be on the shelf at this point, because I already have Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 up there. I have Icewind Dale 1 and 2 up there, although 2 I had to get separately because there was no enhanced edition of 2. We kind of talked about that, but we didn't go entirely into that story because we kind of drifted when we were talking about it. Got Neverwinter Nights 1 and 2 up there. Got Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance 2 up there. I'm missing 1. And then I've got the most recent Dark Alliance up there, which is the one that not as many people like, but it's the one.
The one that's a beat 'em up.
Well, even okay. In the defense of that game.
No, I like it.
In the defense of that game, though, because a lot of people are like, "Oh, it's not an RPG. How is it a D&D game?" None of the Dark Alliance games are RPGs. All of the Dark Alliance games, including the original Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance and Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance 2, which are the only other Dark Alliance games besides this new one, are not RPGs. They are hack and slash games, which is what the new one is. I'd call it a hack and slash more than a beat 'em up. It's a hack and slash, really.
Yeah, that would be slightly more accurate.
And so, they've always been hack and slashes. I will say the newest one has its problems.
Mm-hmm.
It's
a little janky because I remember me, Ethan, and Tyler playing it.
It's gotten better because it had some upgrade. Yeah. It's had some updates. It's still a little janky, but also it was a first-time studio, which I think that might have been the worst choice about. Like, I think they've done like maybe one other game before doing Dark Alliance, and so that and I remember them promising so many things when that game came out too. They were like, "We got like this whole season pass expansion stuff planned."
Talked big and you failed to deliver.
Well, they did it eventually.
Yeah,
but they didn't do.
Start.
But they didn't. But they didn't do it like they had a roadmap, and they were like, "This is when we're gonna release these things." And then I remember, I think I told you I did this. I know I told Alex I did this because Alex and I used to play it a little bit. And I told him, I remember distinctly going and starting to email that company and be like, holding them accountable. I was like, hey, y'all said that this should be now. And I already paid the deluxe thing. I have like the steel case version. Mainly because, I still wanted to support the game because it's the fandom I enjoy. So it was less to it's less of a lot of those whenever people say don't pre-purchase. This was a case of I wanted it to succeed but it just didn't meet expectations. It's still I think it's still a fun game, but you have to you have to realize I think there's a couple things you have to realize that it's going to be a little janky, although I think a lot of online hack and slashers are always going to be. Because the original 2 are not online hack and slash. They are couch co-op. And their jank comes in the form of split screen, baby. And, that's where the jank there comes. Because, split screen can cause some jank. So they're kind of different in that regard. And then, of course, I do think the whole modern game thing of it being a gear... Because... It's a looter shooter. Also, it's a hack and slash looter shooter, where the whole premise is to do the dungeon and get better gear, and then do the dungeon again to get even better gear, and then go to the next dungeon and start that process all over again. And I could care less about that. I did like the story. I thought the story they were telling was good.
I remember the complaints that were had amongst my friend group.
A lot of it was
not the story. The story was
it was usually the jank of gameplay, a little bit of the looted shooter dynamics, because I think even today we still complain about that. But a lot of people don't like the looter shooter mechanics, and that can very quickly become a pay to win mechanic, but thankfully, I don't remember Dark Alliance ever introducing a pay to win mechanic.
I
Thankfully,
remember another discussion. He was like putting his stats together. I was like, so, do you know what any of these stats actually do in this game? And he is like, well, clearly dexterity increases. You're correct. However, literally everything else does not do what you would think that.
Yeah,
it does.
you have to like look at what it actually does before
and
you
like
do.
That's one of the things that can happen with certain games. Like, for example, if you went into like Fallen Order with like assuming that it worked, like Force and Destiny.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I feel also responsible for that because I introduced him to D&D and then he got that game.
I would say also, like, I would argue it's more similar to, like, getting somebody into the Soulsborne series and not explaining that luck does nothing for you.
What does luck do? It increases your item drop rate. Okay, what does that mean? It means it does fuck all for your actual thing.
Because in reality, especially in Demon Souls, your item drop is programmed in. There is no increase. You can't increase your item drop. But that's what luck's supposed to do. So obviously it's a trick stat.
Yeah.
You don't put anything in luck. I think it can do other very minor things. Like I think it can like slowly increase your other stats. But like it's not worth putting any points into. At least not initially. It should be like the last thing you do if you do that. Like it should be the last one you're putting points into. And I think all the Soulsborne games have the luck stat.
I think so.
Or at least some variant.
Some variant. I think for Elden Ring they change it to Arcane, and that stacks typically with like poison and fire builds.
Yeah.
For some reason.
Whereas other games you would think, oh, luck means that, you know, I'm going to get higher rolls on something or whatever. And it's like if you were to like not read it, like we're arguing with the Dark Alliance thing where you just go based on other RPGs that you've played. You go, oh, luck usually means I might get a lucky roll in the background to do something.
Yeah.
And
a critical shot or
yeah.
something.
But no, that's not what it is in the Soulsborne games.
Yeah.
That's what it is in Fallout.
Yeah.
and Fallout...
Fucking walking over you with 10 luck.
I can't wait to play that.
Yeah, I know. I guess we'll start that next Tuesday.
But yeah.
I have read the starting adventure, and I actually think it's really good.
Okay, cool. The Fallout, real quick explanation. He's doing the tabletop Fallout game soon, and this is more for a private, friend thing. It's not for content. But, yeah, it'll be fun. I'm playing a Mr. Handy.
Yeah, and Andrew's playing a super mutant.
Oh.
And I'm like, well, I guess...
You know, that fits... For some reason, that fits Drew.
I'm like, well, I guess they won't have to worry about radiation, so I don't need to worry about, an eighth of the problem.
It's not Fallout 3.
Yeah, no.
It's like, hey, we need to go through that area. Actually, Fallout 4 has the bigger one, I think. If I remember correctly, there's that big radiation area that you gotta go through in 4 that everybody...
Oh, the fucking glowing sea.
Yeah, the glowing sea, that's it. So this is what happens when I've been watching some YouTubers that do, goofy stuff and like Juve. God. Like, that's...
As a guy who's been to the glowing sea, I'm not really mad at it.
You're disappointed with it.
No, I'm...
Sorry, I had to make the joke.
I'm agitated as to, how far off the map I had to go to get to the mission objective. And I didn't realize I needed to talk to the guy. So I just went in there and shot an immortal guy down to, 0 health 5 times.
So the other thing I've been doing...
Oh, yeah.
Well, one, I'm getting ready to play some Pillars of Eternity for the first time. Because Avowed is coming out.
Okay.
And that is set in the same universe. That is the next Obsidian title that's coming out. That's the one that a lot of people are comparing to Elder Scrolls and Skyrim looking.
Okay.
Because it's a first and third person fantasy sword and sorcery thing. But it's in the Pillars of Eternity universe, which is their isometric game.
All right.
And so I need to play those because they've been on my list for a while. And so this is now, we're at the prime time of playing isometric games with Baldur's Gate 3 being the king of them at the moment.
Yeah.
And that's kind of bringing new fans to isometric games, which has caused some discussion between me and some buddies, like me and Josh have talked about the idea that maybe a Pillars of Eternity 3 happens with a bigger budget, because the guy who makes Pillars of Eternity, he said he doesn't want to make a third one unless they get a bigger budget. Especially now that Baldur's Gate 3 happened. But since we've now seen the success of Baldur's Gate 3, that's more than likely going to happen. And then, so Avowed's happening. That was announced. That was being made before Baldur's Gate 3 happened. So obviously, they were like, let's kind of lean away from the isometric thing, and kind of lean into like the more like standard like action RPG. So I think that's what they were thinking, was like, oh, people like prefer action RPGs over isometric anyway, so let's lean into that. And now we're ironically going back to, oh no, isometric is actually popular. So they're probably gonna. But I'm curious to see how Avowed turns out. People aren't too excited graphically by it, but I think it looks fine personally from what we've seen. I think the gameplay looks fine. And one of the main things they're pushing is that there is a lot of missable things in like a good way. Like you can miss things because of just freedom of exploration. There's just so much to explore that you can miss things. That's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. I think people, when they hear, oh, you can miss things, that sucks. No, that's
just the nature of how things work.
For a role-playing game, that is good. I think if you are building an open-world role-playing game, having things that are missable by the majority of your audience is good. Of course, game studios don't think that either. Game studios very much think, no, our players should be able to find 100% of everything, because then what's the point of us making this game? And it's like, the point is that you made such a good open-world game that there's little secrets for certain people who decide to explore it. But you should also reward people who want to explore it by having those little secrets. And then on top of that, the reason that people will want to explore your world is because it's good. And that's why you do that, because then it creates a circle of, oh, this is a good explorative game, and then you reward them for exploring, and then they go, oh, I'll explore more. I know it's red, but our numbers, it's like such a high number at the same time that I don't know.
You know, hopefully you and I will get the chance to like sit down and do some more like co-op for Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna finish our Baldur's Gate 1 run for 1 and 2 runs before we do 3 again. I think, because I think we'll do 1 and 2, and then what I'm thinking we'll do is we'll try to do, hopefully by then, because Larian has talked about it, but they haven't confirmed that they're working on it. Hopefully they'll do crossplay, because that would be great, and then we could get Drew in on 3. If not, the hard way to do it would be to somehow get you a PC that can actually run Baldur's Gate 3, and then have the 3 of us play that way via PC. But I have plenty of time to get to that point, especially because we're still early on in 1. Like, we're still only in chapter 2.
Yeah.
So, still plenty of time. The other thing I've been doing is I've been starting to read the new book that we're going to review next week for the show, because I picked it up a couple days ago, or yesterday. Can't remember for sure which day. And I started to, I think it was a couple days ago. Yeah, Thursday. And so I started reading a little bit of it. We'll talk about what book that is at the end of the show. But I started reading a little bit of it because I didn't know how much, what the plan was regarding how I'm going to share the book with you. But I think I'll let you have it at the end of the episode and then take it home, and I'll buy a digital copy. I'll buy the Kindle copy, or Google Play, I guess, really.
So,
last thing before we switch to main topics.
There are 2 like game ideas that I've got going on in my head that I kind of want to do. One of which is save the setting in 30 days.
Yeah, we talked about that one.
And the other one that
or at least you and I have.
Yeah. The other one that I want to do is like a soft reboot of the Star Wars game that I used to run.
Yeah, because you only did the Jedi beginner box set, right? The Force and Destiny beginner box.
I had a couple of other like little adventures that I made.
But y'all didn't get that. I don't think y'all went that far, did you? I think you just did beginner box, and then
we did beginner box, and then I had to make up a bunch of bullshit.
Well, which is funny because I think the beginner box comes with at least one more adventure.
Yeah.
Well, it's just as a PDF. You have to because they did that.
I didn't do that.
Oh, so you skipped that.
It was like Yeah, it gave me like the teaser for it, and I was like, okay, time to make shit up.
It's like, but that's free. You can go get it for free.
Yeah. I didn't know that at the time.
Because that's what I did with Edge of the Empire. We started with the beginner box for our Edge of the Empire campaign, which you can watch on the channel. We started with the beginner box, and then we jumped straight into Long Arm of the Hut, which is the PDF that the beginner box says, hey, this is the sequel to the beginner box. Mm-hmm. It's free. Go get it. And it even says it in the pamphlet.
Yeah. I didn't read that. So I had to come up with alternative plot lines.
Although I think it's funny that the free PDF is actually longer than the beginner box adventure. So that's kind of funny to me that you pay for the shorter adventure and then the longer adventure is free. Because, like, what? Long Arm of the Hut was a very long adventure on the channel.
Player agency is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, Long Arm of the Hut, though, has a lot of choices, because you can... I mean, you don't get a lot of choices in where you're going, but in how you deal with things, there's a lot of choice.
Yeah. I remember...
Although the Act 3 was pretty short for Long Arm of the Hut, so the beginner box doesn't come in acts. It's just straight up, here's the adventure, and here's the point, and then here's some fights that they can have.
So the problem that I kind of, like, have is because I want... like for Save the World in 30 Days, the setup for if y'all fuck up, I'm going to have to erase everything I made for Polis, and I'll do it.
It's just you also don't want to, as a DM, and I think that's the real trick.
I don't know. I might have to sacrifice like a sheep, I guess, that to work.
Anyways,
and like. The good and bad news is I know what happened with Ethan and Andrew's characters. I know where they are. Ethan's character is off, like, in space, freaking the fuck out because his brother's dead. Meanwhile, Andrew is a Jedi on Coruscant who has just gone on what the Empire would consider a, like, rampage of crime. And the other players are outside of game. So that leaves me with a... like, I can handle Ethan and Andrew, and I know kind of, like, what the problem with the other ones is and how they've been resolved. And, like, a few plotline ideas.
Yeah.
So those are the two, like, ideas that I'm conflicted about.
So, moving on.
Yeah.
We're going to go...
That's what we're actually supposed to be doing.
Well, we're going to talk about our one piece of news, which is actually we're going from some happy stuff to a little bit of a sappy. So the one piece of news this week is we lost the great Carl Weathers this week, just a couple days ago.
Yep. At
the time of this filming, and so that's for the Star Wars community. That's Grief Karga in The Mandalorian. For a lot of other film fans, that's Apollo Creed and Rocky, and he's even directed his own stuff. So he is definitely a part of the film and Star Wars community, and so losing somebody like that.
Yeah.
Is rough. My well wishes to family and friends who knew him personally. I don't think any of y'all are watching the show, but I still want to extend them. Cause
rest in peace.
Yeah. I didn't look. I don't think we know exactly. I can look again. I wasn't sure if we saw exactly what happened. Let me double check. But I mean. Yeah, I mean, we're talking about a guy. I mean, Combat Carl in Toy Story. I forgot about that. He's and of course, you know, he was in Predator as well, because that's Dylan. So another classic. Yeah, currently we don't have a confirmed cause of death. They might know, but there's nothing confirmed publicly, which we aren't owed that. But yeah, he was only 70 something. Like he was still like, he wasn't like up there, but you know, it's kind of weird hearing a lot of these deaths that are like in their 60s and 70s, and it feels weird because usually it's like 80s and 90s when it comes to a lot of these actors, but like lately it's been like 50s to 70s, and like Matthew Perry and like all these other people. And so, like, yeah, 76. So, I mean, it's sad.
Yeah.
But rest in peace, Carl Weathers. You left your legacy on film and television, in my opinion. Back to more happier stuff. Yeah. That was our only piece of news, unfortunately. There was no. I looked. I was like, hopefully this isn't the only piece of news. But nope. Yeah, there wasn't any other real news out there for this week for Star Wars. So we're gonna jump into today's topic, which is the classic of Episode 1, The Phantom Menace.
Yeah. So you didn't write a script for today?
No. I figured this is very on the cuff. I feel like this one we can easily do that. Because, it's The Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
I think for the most... So,
came out the year I was born.
Let's go ahead. I know most of our community has watched it already, but just in case.
Spoiler warning for a 20-year-old movie.
Just in case you're the Star Wars fan out there who hasn't watched it yet.
For some reason.
And you know what? Because that might be normal, because everybody jumps into Star Wars at different points. And I think this film is actually probably the leading argument of that. Especially
5, 4, 6, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I mean, because, most people, a lot of people who grew up with Star Wars as it came out saw what we now consider 4 first. It was just called Star Wars at the time. And now it's 4. Mm-hmm. And then The Phantom Menace became the new starting point for a lot of fans, which was our generation of Star Wars fans. That was my starting point, was The Phantom Menace. And then...
Call me mid. Gonna be so fucking
And then, now we have the sequel trilogy as the next generation, the next generation start. So
Star Wars is like the Ninja Turtles. You're never getting rid of them.
Yeah. And it's going to be like a new starting point for the fan base. Because, similar to Ninja Turtles, you have the different shows. And, there's the 2005 show, which is a starting point for a lot of people. We had the 80s and 90s ones. And then you have the later... I mean, there's always a new show or movie for Turtles. And So, similar with Star Wars, there's always a new trilogy. At some point, there is a new trilogy, which becomes the new starting point for a lot of fans. And I think... I personally think welcoming all fans with open arms. And of course, that means accepting the fact that maybe what you think is an obvious starting point for Star Wars is not the starting point for everyone. So, yeah, that's why we put spoiler warning in this one, just in case. Because the sequel fans, and you know what? Welcome to, if you are somebody who started with the sequels, welcome to our show.
Yeah.
We like the sequels. We have our opinions on certain things. You've only seen the... I say we like the sequels, but you've only seen The Force Awakens.
The 2 Star Wars films that I was able to see in theater are The Force Awakens and Episode 3.
Yeah, because you didn't even see Rogue One or Solo.
No, I did not.
Yeah.
Or if I did, I forgot about it.
Yeah, and so, you've seen them at your house.
Yeah.
So now the only ones left to still see in theaters, or to still see in general, is 8 and 9.
Yeah.
That, you've now seen all of them but those 2.
It's just such a fucking whack order to see movies in.
At the same time, it's at the end of the day, it's minor. But yeah, so I think this is while we are tangentially going off a tangent already. I think this is fitting. I think this is a fitting conversation actually about, because The Phantom Menace is exactly that. It's a starting point. Yeah. And so I think this is, while it feels like a tangent, I feel like this is a topic that makes sense still at the same time.
Chronological order, bitch.
Yeah. I'm very much a chronological order. I know a lot of people that are release order, and I don't have arguments for or against that. I think really either order works at the end of the day, because either way, because really the whole reason for people make the machete cut, which is watching it 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 6 is the machete order. Which the machete order was made before Solo and Rogue One and the others came out. It was when it was just the original 6.
So now they have to make Machete Cut Volume 2.
Yeah, which would be 4 Solo.
Solo 4.
No, wait. Would it be 4
Rogue One.
It would be 4 Rogue One, Solo.
Solo happens before Rogue One.
No. But Machete, I know. The Machete order is so. The reason for Machete Cut is that it's supposed to not spoil the spoilers before they happen. So, like, in the case of 4 and in the case of the original trilogy, the big spoiler is I am your father, or Luke, I am your father. Or no, it's no, I am your father is the line. But when he reveals to Luke that Vader is daddy, right?
Okay.
That's the big reveal of the original trilogy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the Machete order was made with the design in mind of you watch the films, like if you're introducing the films to somebody who has never seen them before, you go in the order of that, so that you go 4, 5, the reveal happens, and then you watch Anakin's life, 1, 2, 3, and then 6.
Yep.
And you see the redemption in 6, right? That's the idea of the Machete order. So that would mean it would have to be like 4, Rogue One. But the argument is, would you watch Rogue One or Solo first? Because both...
Neither of those, if you do it Solo, that doesn't have anything that involves Rogue One.
But also
But it's also a weird movie to start.
Because like 4 like people want 4 to be the start, but also then you'd have to decide, okay, well, which one happens next, Rogue One or Solo, because both are prequels to 4.
Yeah.
But have nothing to do with each other than being a prequel to 4.
Rogue One's events lead directly into 4, but it's a weird way to go about it.
I would say the new Machete order might be then, in that case, would be Rogue One, 4, Solo. Have Solo be the one that we do the jump back to, because then we've met Han in 4, and then we do the cut back. Because there's no...
And it doesn't spoil anything for 5, so it's good.
The only thing it might set up... I'm trying to think of...
It does...
It really only does set up for the sequels.
It's a standalone
it really
movie,
does.
So it doesn't really need much.
Like, it doesn't do any setting up for any of the other films, really, other than maybe some stuff of the sequel with, like, the die, like Han's little dice. Because they play, like, an emotional factor in 8. But, like, they're not, like, a story factor. They're more of a character developmental emotional factor, right? But yeah, so like I guess the Machete order could just be Solo, Rogue One, 4, 5,
1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Yeah, thank you for agreeing with me.
It's
a weird way to go about it, but we got it.
Well, because I'm trying to figure out like because the whole point of the Machete cut is that you don't spoil things, but also like they like the idea of doing the flashbacks with the Machete order, obviously. So like, would you want to do a flashback for like Solo or Rogue One, or would you? I mean, I don't know. But I think at the end of the day, you still are spoiled on things, because even if you do that Machete order, you are now spoiled on the knowledge that Anakin will become Vader with the prequels, right? Because 1, 2, and 3 is the journey of Anakin becoming Vader. So either way, you're spoiled on something.
Yeah.
Because, like, I watched 1, 2, and 3 before I watched any of the other ones. Well, I watched 1 and 1 before I watched any of the other ones. So I had watched 4, 5, and 6 after I'd watched 1. Because VHS is back in the day. So I'd watched 4. Or I'd watched 1 first. I did the thing as a kid. Because, like, when you're a kid, you don't really care about the politics in 1.
No, you don't.
Or really anything else other than the lightsaber fights.
Yeah.
And the pod race scene. And really, that's about it. Really, that's about it.
If you're me, you don't fucking care about the pod race scene, and it's like...
See, I like the pod race scene as a kid.
2.5 hour... Not... It's almost a 2-hour build-up for 5 minutes of action.
So, like, as a kid, what I would do...
Mm-hmm.
And I remember having babysitters at this time, because I was, like, 7.
Yeah.
And so, like, I would, like... People would be watching me, and I would just put in the movie, and then fast forward, lightsaber scene. Fast forward, pod race. Actually, no lightsaber scenes. No.
There are lightsabers in certain scenes, but there are no duels.
So actually, no. I would watch the beginning fight because I would watch them escape I would watch the short negotiations.
Yeah, I remember we were talking about this in the car, where I'm like, why did you fuckers do it this way?
So I would watch the short negotiations, and then I would fast forward. fight on Naboo
Yeah.
to save Padme and them. Fast forward. No, I would watch them fly away. I would watch the fight in the ships because I would watch them getting into the space battle to leave Naboo.
Yeah.
Then fast forward. Pod race.
Yep.
Fast forward.
Encounter with Maul.
Fast forward. I can't remember what the next combat scene is, but like, yeah. So that was my thing, and then eventually like Duel Fates. Like you let Duel Fates play out. You can't interrupt it, even if it's the parts where it's the lull in Duel Fates. Nope, you watch it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like, but now I appreciate those scenes more. Like I was 7. I also kept the Jar Jar scenes on because I actually like Jar Jar.
I am still indifferent to that man to this day, even as a child.
Now I think this isn't the best of Jar Jar. I think we get I get the premise. Like obviously, there's also problematic parts about Jar Jar about like the whole that it's a little bit of racism towards the mannerisms of Jar Jar and the way he talks and that
SA at the end of every other word.
Yeah, it is like it
is dangerously close.
And of course, Watto also has similar implications to racism in a different direction of like Jewish descent.
Oh.
Yeah. There's stuff with like his nose and his greed, and that's just like,
That's weird, bug man.
Yeah. And then of course, I mean, there's problems with the Phantom Menace looking back, and the Nemoidians with their obviously Asian accents that are, things that as a kid you don't realize, and then you're like, especially when somebody else brings them up, and you're like, oh, that is there.
Maybe it's because I was introduced to Jackie Chan for his films, so I was like,
you were like, this is normal.
I was like, sometimes people just talk like that.
Yeah, but it becomes weird when you realize like
I never, for some reason, even to this day, until just now, I never made that connection. I was like, these guys are kind of weird. Also, they tried to blow up a ship, like, in 10 minutes.
Yeah, is the captain a kid?
I'm not sure.
Because that is my question to this day regarding, and I don't know if I still have the Phantom Menace visual dictionary. I used to have, I had the visual dictionary for a while. I might have it somewhere. But it does. I don't think it explains that kid, or the captain of the Republic ship that Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan come in on, because that blows up in the first 10 minutes, and of course. Another thing I'll bring up about this film, it's so fucking quotable to this. Like, if you've watched it once, you know like half of the lines in this movie. Does it make the writing good? Here and there.
It makes it memorable.
It makes it memorable.
There are 2 of them.
But yeah, like one of the lines I always remember is the Captain, look, shields up.
Whoops.
And it's too late. Already blown up. But yeah, like, I always thought, like, I think that captain is a kid, but, like, also he's a captain, and we never see in Star Wars other children that are, like, in charge of ships, except for in the High Republic now. But
maybe that's why. This fucking kid got blown away on this diplomatic mission, and they were like, never again will we allow this.
Because, like, in the High Republic we see it now, because we've got, like, oh, I forgot her name now. The vessel.
She hangs out.
Anyways, like, we have her. And then we've got, like, also in Young Jedi Adventures, we also have what's her name as well. Which that show is canon. So we've got that kid as well, who pilots our main characters to all of their missions. And also asks them to cheat in boat races. In boat races, rather.
We're not going to cheat.
We're not going to cheat. We're Jedi. We've watched that episode, so we can talk about that one.
Yeah, why did you ask us to cheat? We're not going to.
And then other kid thinks, y'all are cheating. It's like, no, we're Jedi. We don't cheat.
Meanwhile.
That's why I was cheating. I thought y'all were cheating.
Meanwhile, Qui-Gon Jinn over here cheating throughout the entire movie. He spams that.
That's the real reason why he couldn't be on the council. It's because everybody knows he cheats at his gambling.
Yeah.
He
Truly, the gravest crime in Star Wars, cheating at gambling.
That's why he couldn't be on the council. Realistically, all the council members were like, he would owe us money if we could prove he was cheating, but he keeps cheating, so we owe him money. We obviously can't let this man on the council.
A really devastating moment in the movie that's also somewhat funny. If you, like, just accept...
Are you about to talk about the scene you were talking to me about earlier?
Yes and no. It's related to that.
Okay.
So, a little bit of build-up, because these scenes happen very close together.
Yeah, I would say this film is actually... I will say one of the best parts, other than the other than the memorability of the lines in this film, the other best part is the pacing.
Yeah, it's paced really well. However, the brutal moment of Qui-Gon being like, I didn't come here to free slaves, you know? And it's like, damn. Like, we know why he's there.
Yeah.
And he should.
But also, optimistic Anakin at this time is very much like, oh, you're obviously here to free slaves because you're a Jedi and that's the right thing to do. And Qui-Gon's like, unfortunately,
no.
He's like Qui-Gon's like, I wish, but that is not why we're here.
Yeah. And then, like, the conversation with Padme being like, you guys are slaves?
Yeah, because earlier, when they first meet.
And Anakin goes... And he says this in, like, the most aggressive manner. And I love that he does this. I am a person, and my name is Anakin.
We get why that line is there.
Yeah.
But it's just the way it's spoken.
It's said so aggressively.
But in, like...
You should swear at the end of that.
Yeah. And, honestly, Jake Lloyd is really good in this film.
Yeah.
That's another thing that kind of sucks, is that this film destroyed Jake Lloyd on a personal level. To the point that he does not want to act ever again. He went through a really rough period where, drugs and all that. All because of people bullying him. And unfortunately, we still see that in Star Wars community.
Yeah.
To the point where certain actors don't have social media accounts because of it. Like, looking at you, Daisy Ridley, and we love you, and it sucks that you don't want to interact with the community because of that shit.
You did your job to the best of your ability. I'm sorry that people were jerks to you for no real reason.
Same thing also with Kelly Marie Tran, who is in The Last Jedi. She plays Rose.
Okay.
Yeah, and so a lot of racism on top of the commenting on her acting, and it's just like, why people? Well, I know why. It's a bad answer, but I know why. It's an answer that should not be an excuse for this behavior, but it is the answer. But like, yeah. So I love this film. I love it a lot. It's definitely...
It's funny in how heart-wrenchingly brutal it actually is if you stop to think about the stuff that goes on in this movie.
Well, because we've already talked about the book that's from Pat May's perspective of all this going down. Queen's... I forget which of the Queen's trilogy it is all of a sudden. Queen's Peril.
Yeah.
Which is basically war crimes are going on back on Naboo.
Yeah.
Like, we're talking about some torture, some war crimes. There's a reason why C.O. Bibble is calling them frantically going,
fucking help.
Yeah.
It's bad over here.
I think another interesting thing that George didn't play into with this film, which he could have easily done, is the trope of the traitorous advisor. Because, like, C.O. Bibble could have easily been, like, a traitor. And, like, that could have been a storyline in this film. But George didn't go that way, so I think it's interesting that's... Because, like, the first time watching as a kid, you might be thinking, oh my god, this guy is a traitor. Like, you're going with the Jedi's instincts of, it's a trap. Don't trust this guy. But, like, also, it turns out that's not the case.
It's not true at all.
Yeah.
He's just like, genuinely concerned.
Yeah. And Queen's Peril adds a little bit more nuance to, like, what's going on where, like, C.O. Bibble and them are having to find ways to get these communications off-world, but also the Trade Federation is letting it happen at the same time because like they while it's not intentionally a trap on C.O. Bibble's part, the Trade Federation are letting it happen so that way it can be a trap because I mean, we learn at the beginning of the movie. They turn off all communication from the planet to and from the planet. So obviously, how did this transmission get out if not a trap?
Yeah.
And so like and that's why Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan's instincts are half right in this scenario. Other great moments are just Darth Maul.
Yeah.
The man does not say a lot. He's got 2 whole lines in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Because Ray Parks is not really well, he doesn't even say the lines in this film. I think it was another actor that read the lines. Ray Park just did the physicality and the stunt work.
Mm-hmm.
And so the man tends to go to very silent characters that do stunts. I mean, the next big role that I can immediately think of was when he was in the G.I. Joe films as Snake Eyes.
Ah, cool.
But not the new Snake Eyes film, but the 2 G.I. Joe films before that film came out. Because there were the 2... Because the new Snake Eyes film was like, no, let's make it clear that Snake Eyes is of Asian descent. Whereas the G.I. Joe films were like, yes, he's of Asian descent, but we're going to have him played by a white man inside the costume. Or a Scot... Because I think Ray Park is Scottish. Anyways. Yeah, we're going back to the Highlander discussion.
No, I was remembering... I think he also plays Toad. And I was thinking,
yeah, he does play Toad. Yeah. He is Toad.
Do you know what happens when a Toad
which is also a character that does not have... I don't think he has any lines in that film either.
Nah, he doesn't. Storm setting up like the joke, and he's just no-selling it. He didn't no-sell that lightning though.
Yeah. You know what though? It works as a really great anti-joke actually. Like, there's very few good anti-jokes out there, but I think that one is a very good one. But yeah, like, this, going back to the Phantom Menace, I think everybody did so well in this. Like, everybody did what they could. Early career of Natalie Portman.
Yeah.
Early career of Keira Knightley. Kind of early career of Ewan McGregor. I think he had already done Train Spotting by this point. But...
It's a movie I've not watched, so...
Yeah, it's not completely for the faint of heart. It's a film about drug life.
Ah, okay.
And heroin. And there's a scene where with a baby and a toilet, and it's all like super psychedelic shit. And it's like, yeah.
What?
Yeah. I haven't seen the sequel though. They made a sequel.
Okay.
Much later. But yeah. It's still early in Ewan McGregor's career. He had done a couple big things, though, before then, because Train Spotting was recognized as a really good film.
Yeah.
I think it was nominated for some stuff.
Ewan McGregor is... I'm glad they took this, because now we have a very iconic
I'd say...
Obi-Wan
yeah, I was going to say, Ewan really... Like, this film, he's not... He does... It's kind of weird, because in this film, he's, like, really only in half of it.
Yeah.
Because once you get to Tatooine, there's almost no Obi-Wan.
Yeah, I was thinking about it, like, kind of throughout the week. I was like, what characters are, like, proactive throughout the story? I'm like, Padme is proactive, and Qui-Gon Jinn is proactive.
Yep.
The rest of the cast are reactive.
Yeah, everything else is happening to them.
Mm-hmm. With the exception of... Maul and Sidious.
But that's because they're the antagonists, so and you want your antagonist...
They have to be.
Yeah, your antagonist should be proactive.
Yeah.
So should...
And then after dispatching Maul, Sidious, Palpatine, a.k.a. the Emperor, is reactive after that, because he's like, I don't need to worry about it.
Yeah, because, I'd say once they get to Coruscant, it becomes reactive. Because from that point, it's basically Palpatine's plan is just coming to fruition. We were talking about this earlier. Like, Palpatine is playing chess, and he's, like, already putting all his pieces, like, he already is, like, disposing of pawns that are unnecessary for the overall plan. And he's like, oh no, my pawns.
Oh, how crazy.
Yeah, how crazy that Gunray gets arrested. Oh, well.
Oh, no.
What will I do?
Meanwhile, oh thank fucking god, I didn't need that motherfucker.
Same thing with Maul. Like he's like, we've already discussed this because Tales of the Jedi confirms it. He was already working on replacing Maul.
Yeah.
Like Dooku wasn't quite there. Like Dooku wasn't officially his apprentice yet. That's not until, spoilers for Tales of the Jedi, Dooku kills Yaddle.
Yeah.
But like he was already working for, like he was already doing stuff for Palpatine. Like he already erased, like we see in Tales of the Jedi, he erases Kamino from the map during the events of Phantom Menace. Like, because I think it's during the scene when Qui-Gon comes back.
Yeah.
It's after he's talked to the council and they've said no to training Anakin.
Yeah. Where Qui-Gon says, fuck you, I'll do it anyway.
Yeah. And so...
What are you going to do, stop me?
We see Dooku do that during this time, thanks to Tales of the Jedi. And then we know that after, like, near the end of the film, after the Battle of Naboo, but before Qui-Gon's funeral is when he kills Yaddle.
Yeah.
Because he's got to go to Naboo for the funeral, because I think the funeral is being held on Naboo. Because I think it's the same place where Padme's, spoilers for Revenge of the Jedi, or Revenge of the Sith, it's where Padme's like funeral parade is held. It's like in that same area. And so, we know that Palpatine and Dooku, well, we know Palpatine flies out there. Dooku decides he's not going.
Yeah.
Because Dooku is resentful of everything going on. And that's why a lot of what he does is, like, even before Qui-Gon died, he was resentful for a lot of things. And we'll get to talk about that this season, because we're going to do Dooku Jedi Lost, which is a lot of the telling of where a lot of his issues with the Order come from.
Qui-Gon, I remember initially, like, when he goes and talks to Palpatine, is like, hey, your fucking mutt killed my apprentice. That was not the deal, man.
Yeah. No, that's when Dooku goes to talk to him after, like, and he's like, Dooku's like, no, this wasn't my, Dooku is pissed that Maul killed Qui-Gon.
Yeah. It's like, it's crazy when you hear, because, like, throughout most of the, like, bits where we see Dooku, he never is that pissed off about, like, anything.
We see some hints of it, like, in other media, but yeah, in the films and show, we don't really.
I think that's the most pissed off.
I'd say Master and Apprentice, we see it, too, because there's that flashbacks of the relationship between there's the, Dooku almost killing an assassin because they tried to kill Qui-Gon.
Yeah.
And terrified child Qui-Gon of seeing his master go full dark side in front of him.
I'm gonna kill this motherfucker.
The only reason I'm bringing it up, though, is because canonically,
where the fuck is Rael Averross?
He did not exist. Okay, so do you want the? I was gonna say, do you want the real life answer or the in-universe answer?
I just want to know if he's okay.
Okay, because I was gonna say the real life answer is that he doesn't exist yet.
Yeah.
When this film is made, Rael Averross is not a character.
Yeah, I know. I want to know where he is in the future.
Yeah.
I know he doesn't exist.
You want the in-universe answer for where he was during this.
Yeah.
Probably getting drunk, knowing Rael.
Probably.
Like, he probably heard, like, let's be real. If you've read Master and Apprentice, Rael Averross is definitely the type that when he hears this news, he goes on a bender.
Yep.
Because he just lost his little brother.
Yeah.
Because Qui-Gon was his little brother.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they had a very brotherly bond, and Rael loved Qui-Gon.
Man.
He also loved Dooku, but not enough to join Dooku on his dark side crusade.
Dooku calls him up and he's like, hey, I'm leaving the Jedi Order to go and meet up with a Separatist. Would you like to join me?
No thanks.
Dad, what the fuck?
No thanks. I'm good.
Nah, I'm good.
I just had to learn a lesson about this stuff. I don't need to get involved again.
I literally just learned this exact same lesson of being too attached to people in politics. So I'm going
to the Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
I think this is all related, so these aren't too far off on tangents. But, like, man, this movie, like, this is the movie that got me into Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
This is the movie that got me into filmmaking.
Oh.
Yes. This is the film that when I watched it, originally I wanted to be an actor.
Ah.
Because I liked the film and I was like, oh sweet, I could be in movies and stuff. That's a viable thing in the future. And then eventually though, within a year, I realized, oh, I don't want to be an actor. I want to be a director and writer, because I would like, as a kid, I would like on the back of my you ever doodle on the back of a test sheet, like as a kid, like in like second and lower grades, like you would do like
to doodle on your tests?
I did.
No, they beat the shit.
No, see, so what would happen is, you know how you have those,
that's actually no.
Yeah, I was gonna say it should be gone by then, like, or at least mostly like not as much of a thing by then, because it wasn't really a thing when I was a kid. There were no corporal punishment in school when I was a kid.
Then again, I was in a private school
until
third grade.
That's probably that would explain actually.
Admittedly, like I was actually a really good kid up until middle school, where for some reason I was like the worst.
But like, so you know how they used to give you like those speed math quizzes where it was not about like, it was about getting them right, but it was about like getting as many right as possible in like a minute. They'd give you a minute, and it was always like either multiplication tables or additional and subtract. Like it was simple math.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to see how quick you were with simple math. So it was usually just a front. There was usually only a front side sheet to those. Mm-hmm. So I would do those, and then the minute was up, and then they'd start collecting, and while they were collecting, I would turn the sheet over, because you weren't supposed to write on the front anymore. So you had to turn the sheet over until they collected them. So while they were collecting them, I would just doodle on the back. And I would doodle, like, posters of, like, fake movies that I could star in. Oh. And so it was usually very Star Wars inspired. But it was, like, superheroes in Star Wars. So, like, superheroes with lightsabers. I wonder where that concept ended up going in my... in my writing career. I wonder where that inspiration went.
Oh man,
I wonder.
We'll never know. Much like getting to the center of a Tootsie Roll Pop, that question will remain a mystery.
It's almost like, I don't. It's almost like I wrote a book that has like laser swords and superheroes in it and sci-fi and and I've described it as MCU meets Star Wars. But nah. But no.
I feel really bad because I've explained this to you, how I've like started reading your book like 5 different times,
and it's not because it's not because you don't like it. It's just you get distracted.
Yeah, and I like stop halfway through.
So I'm not offended. Like, I get it. Life happens. And even if you don't like the book, that's fine. It's my first book. I can get over that. You get better with writing as you make more books. I think.
Here's a funny joke for you, right?
Yeah.
As a child growing up, eventually I like started switching over. I was like, well, I want to be a writer. And I read a bunch of books and I was like, man, people suck at like proper punctuation and grammar. Maybe I want to be an editor. And as a guy who has seen some of my writing, that is the fucking funniest thing to say. Because I write them like I don't give a fuck.
I guess I can say it, yeah. I can agree with you because I've seen your writing too. I rarely comment on that. I comment more on I think your stories are fine, and then I end up going, really the only thing I change is like formatting, which is the nice way of saying editing.
Yeah.
It's the official way of saying editing. Yeah. It's I like where your story is, but it should be you need to clean.
You learn how to paragraph properly.
Learn to clean it up. No, I also have a lot of formatting issues though, and mine is more of formatting never just turns out the way it should when I print the books, because I do self-publishing through Amazon, and so it like never looks the way it looks when I write it. And
for some reason, my brain is like, oh, just use MLA format. But no one uses fucking MLA format for anything.
Especially not novels. Especially not novels. Yeah. And it's not ALA. It's not the other one either. It's not ALA either. You don't use either.
So I always like, whenever I pull something up, it's always like center, Times New Roman, 12, double space. Everything else doesn't fucking matter.
Which also means you're behind 2 updates on like what is the current like font as well.
Yeah.
Because like it was Calabri for a minute.
What the fuck are they using now?
They just changed it again. If you open Word again, it's whatever the new like font is. I forget what. It's a new one, and like I ended up strangely on like font TikTok where they made a joke about that and how Calibri's been replaced.
What the fuck do they use now?
Oh, it's not on this one. Hold on.
Not Star Jedi.
No, that's one I had to download. That's one I had to find on the internet. No, because somebody had to make that font because it's not an official font, obviously.
What they fucking wanted in
you wanted
Papyrus?
you wanted a Star Wars font, and there's no like I don't know what the official font is for Star Wars, and so I had to find one that somebody made.
Like,
if somebody knows the official font of Star Wars, great, but I don't need it anymore. That was for when I was doing Star Wars Edge of the Empire games. The new. Come on, give me the new font. It's not Calibri anymore. I forget what it is. Anyways, it's not Calibri anymore. That's not correct.
It's just...
I guess my versions of Word have not updated. I thought I saw that mine had, but I guess I can't find it now. Anyways.
Like, I write the story and then I'm like, editing. Nah, fuck that. That's somebody else. They can do that.
That's my job. At least for the books or at least for the stories you've been writing for my stuff.
Yeah, and I sometimes I write short stories for Chiari for like his game, just because it's fun.
And he has to do the same thing.
And the good news is he doesn't have to do that because he's like, man, I like these stories, but also fucking punctuation and grammar, man.
Yeah.
And I'm like, fuck that.
Yeah, because I know how they are. They like both Chiari and Keontae would be like all over that.
Oh, I remember one day, like, for one of his games, I wrote like a backstory because you have to write.
Wait, for which one?
This one was like.
Well, I meant whose game specifically because I mentioned both. Okay, Keontae's.
And I remember
because they both run games, so that's why I have to specify.
And I wrote it, and I had wrote like a bunch of it, and it ended up without me like paragraphing or spacing anything out.
Mm-hmm.
So I just decided, fuck it, I'll go to TV Tropes, read up on it, and see what happens in this film. And of course, what should I find but to my surprise that it's another cyber noir film. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I read through it, and it has one of the moments of like, I see you took the like JoJo's approach to how are we gonna make this villain have penance for all the evil shit he did. And it's like, oh, he just gets to be stuck in like the day he got set on fire and traumatized by it for forever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, fuck that guy. He deserved it.
But yeah, so yeah, that's kind of the path I went on. And then of course I was the kid who would, once DVDs became a thing, would watch the films with the director's commentary and watch the behind the scenes. I was that kid.
I remember I did that once for like each of them, and then I got confused because I thought there was like additional content. And I was right. I was just an idiot kid who didn't understand what the fuck was going on.
Yeah. And so I was that kid that eventually would watch like the directors and producers commentary. Well, and of course, you know, I'll say that I do think that while I like these films, I do not like the approach that Rick McCallum took as a producer, which is very much just whatever George says we're doing, even though I'm a producer and that it should be my job to kind of help guide the direction of this process.
The occasional bit of curtailing can help sometimes.
Yeah. And I think that's where a lot of people recognize the flaws in these films, are that these films, while fun and very much Star Wars still, in my opinion, there's no such thing as not really Star Wars within a lot of the Star Wars content. It's very rare that I see Star Wars content and go, that's not Star Wars. In fact, I don't think I've ever said that about a Star Wars project. But, like, the problem is, so George comes from, obviously, the independent, like, type of film directing. Except he had to make deals when he did the original trilogy. Yeah. And so Fox owned his movies for the originals. And even still had ownership a little bit when it came to the prequels, which is why you still get the 20th Century Fox logo.
Yeah.
But I think once Lucasfilm became a thing, he obviously wanted control, which is very much a overcorrect. It became an overcorrection.
Yeah.
And that there's no other voices of writers, there's no other directors for any of the prequels,
Mm-hmm.
And while there's a producer, at the end of the day, really Lucas is still the executive producer, which means he makes the final say. So even if Rick did say no, which Rick never did, if you ever watch behind the scenes, Rick McCallum was as yes men as they came. And so, while I have a soft place for the prequels because they are my start to Star Wars, I still recognize some of the flaws.
Mm-hmm.
It's more so and less in the films themselves. Like, I still see a few things in the films themselves. We talked about it. More of the accidental racisms, because I don't think George did them on purpose. I think it's just, as a white male, he wrote the script and filmed these things not thinking of the context of these things, and was like, this is a trope that works, and because a lot of them are based on older tropes, and unfortunately a lot of these tropes also come from racism, and so it happened. And it's not, I don't think it's because he's a hateful man. I think it just happened.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with acknowledging it.
Sometimes you write things and you don't realize like the implications of them until way later.
It's usually until you have another set of eyes.
Yeah.
Until another set of eyes looks at it and goes, hey, about that. And so I think that's the other problem with having somebody like Rick, who was a yes man, because then you don't have an honest pair of eyes looking at it. And whereas the original trilogy are, like, most people consider them, and I consider some of them, the best of Star Wars. Like, they say you can't top the original trilogy. And the reason for that is because he had an extra set of eyes on all of them except for A New Hope, really. Because, like, he didn't direct Empire, which most people consider the best. And then, I think he returned to directing for 6. I can't remember if... I never get that one right. Return of the Jedi, I'm never right on how that one went down.
I'm gone for a week and everybody has delusions of grandeur.
Yeah. And so, like... I believe it's a different... Yeah, it was a different director. So Richard Marquand. There we go. I wanted to make sure I got that right, so that way I didn't, like, just attribute it to somebody. So, yeah. Richard Marquand directed that one. And then, so 2 films out of the trilogy were not George. Now, George wrote, or had a hand in writing all of them, although he also had Lawrence Kasdan as a co-writer for all of them. Whereas the prequels, all George. George wrote, George direct, George produce.
He said, my name's gonna be up there 3 times in the ending credits.
So, like, and that's a dangerous position to put yourself in. Like, and I think you can do all 3 in a film, but you have to have, like, a co-director or a co-writer. Like, you have to have somebody in one of those other seats that can, like, with you to be like, hey, let's talk about this direction, maybe. And so, I think Phantom Menace, I think these films, at the end of the day, turned out fine. Phantom Menace is probably my favorite of the prequel trilogy. I know Revenge of the Sith is the popular one to say. I like Revenge of the Sith. It's probably a close second. Phantom Menace used to be lower, but I've come around on it. And I think it is one of the best of the prequels. If not the best. Attack of the Clones is a little bit lower for me. But I know a lot of people that have a lot... I know people that put Attack of the Clones as their #1 Star Wars movie of all time. I respect that. It's a
good one.
It's not my favorite. I think I enjoy half the movie. We'll talk about that when we get to Attack of the Clones. I enjoy half the movie. It's not because the film...
half where Obi-Wan's doing his job.
I essentially like because it's... We'll talk about it more, but I joke that it's 2 movies. It's a murder mystery, and then it's a romance film. I like the murder mystery film.
He tries to split the difference.
I like the murder mystery film. And it's not because the romance film is bad. It's just that the writing is not my favorite. But in high, like, and it's not. And also,
they're doing the thing they're supposed to do.
It's rich. It just doesn't work for me, and that's all. Like it, which is no hate to anybody that like. It's just I obviously recognize that it is my personal preference. It is not. It is not a. I think that it's a bad film. No, it's just. So, and that's I think the way that you should debate films in general is but the moment that you like, if you find somebody that finds it and finds enjoyment from it, then that makes it not a bad film in their eyes, and therefore your description of it being a bad film doesn't apply to them, and therefore anytime you push that like that idea onto them, that's not fair to them. And so I think but yeah, Phantom Menace, classic. Yeah. We didn't really do point by point on this one because it's very much. I feel
Duel of the Fates is fucking rad. That's all you need to know. I watched a lot of brutal maimings as a child. Duel of the Fates is up there.
I mean,
I'd never see a man get bisected before.
But hey, the great part about lightsabers is there's no blood.
Yeah.
Just Darth Maul swinging his arms as he falls.
I'll get you.
Like, you ever notice that? Like, the first time I watched it, I didn't realize it, but, like, the next few times of watching it, you realize Maul's, like, moving, but it's not because he's, like, actively moving. It's because, like, the wind as he's falling. And it's just still, but it's still, like, a thing where you're like, that's interesting. Especially as a kid, to see that. Yeah.
And the backflip side swipe by Obi-Wan is crazy.
Master of the low ground. Everybody says it's the high ground, but it's really the low ground. Because he always tricks his enemies into having the higher ground than him.
Except for when he doesn't.
No, because every time he wins, it's when he's really on the low ground. Because he beats Darth Maul because he has the low ground. Because he doesn't cut him while he's in the air. He cuts him once they're on the same level of footing. But because he had the low ground initially, that's why he won. And then, let's see, he doesn't have the low ground ever in Attack of the Clones, so he doesn't win those fights. He has the low ground against Grievous.
What do you mean he gets the lowest ground possible against Jango? He fucking falls.
Oh yeah, yeah. So that's why he beats Jango for a bit. That's why he kicks Jango's ass for a bit.
I do like how he tries to sidekick him off the side of the thing.
But in 3, he has low ground against Grievous, kills Grievous from the low ground with a blaster. Which that was a scene that was on repeat as a kid, because you know how back in the day you could do A/B, and you could like have a scene just kind of keep repeating on like your DVD player, and so explanation for those who didn't grow up with a DVD player that had this capability. There was a thing called A and B, which is you hit A at the start point of something you wanted to have repeated, and then you hit B at the end point of it, and it would just cycle back and keep playing until you hit it again to turn it off. Grievous's explosion was one of those for me. Specifically, I started the A at the when he's screaming and his head's on fire. And then the B would be after the explosion.
You know, the best part about Obi-Wan is, for a guy that doesn't like blasters, he picks them up like a lot throughout his life.
Because we're not even talking about the Kenobi show. He picks it up there too. And then let's see. And technically, Revenge of the Sith has 2 victories on the low ground, because he tricks Anakin into taking the high ground, which is when he cuts him down. Because it's when Anakin's above him that Obi-Wan wins. So technically a master of the low ground.
Don't try it, Anakin.
I have the high ground. Reverse psychology. I see what you did there, Obi-Wan. You were trying to make Anakin think the high ground's important, so that way he'd get the high ground, and then you could win.
Don't do that backflip shit. You know it won't work.
Anakin's like, that's what you want me to not do. I'm gonna do it!
Anakin...
Anakin in this film, though. Anakin, because we can talk a little bit more.
Baby Anakin.
I think... Thanks.
Sorry. Are you okay?
Nah, no, you're good. Watch your foot. I'm going to move it some more.
Yeah.
There we go.
So, for those of you who complain about the sound, this is one of the reasons why I'm so far back.
Except you were far back still. You were stepping on it,
My
though.
big fucking boot.
But what I was going to say. So, a lot of people talk about how Anakin should be older in this film. I think I understand what George is going for in this, and I think it kind of works. In the whole, he wanted to show Anakin at his most innocent. And a teenager Anakin would have already been acting up a lot more. Whereas this Anakin, it makes sense that he's nicer, and we see the ideals of why Anakin would want to be a Jedi. We see why the Jedi might consider letting him in, because he is a good person in this film. And I'd say even later on, he's still a good person. He just makes the worst mistakes as they go on, and he does not take accountability for them until Return of the Jedi. And even then, you could argue he didn't. So, yeah. So you see where, like, you see the vision of what George wanted out of that. And then, Qui-Gon, man. Qui-Gon did his best.
Yeah.
Liam Neeson is great.
Yeah.
Going back into talking about actors in this film, Liam Neeson's career was already kind of taken off a bit. He had done a few films.
He's in The Kroll, by the way.
Yeah, so
I forget who
I think you told me
plays,
that, but yeah.
But like,
So he's been in a few films at this point, and so
Hugh Jackman, Liam Neeson, and Jackie Chan. Those were the three main actors I had growing up.
So I love this film. Going back to talking about just this film on its own without the rest of the prequels.
Yeah. It's a solid film.
It holds up in most things. Like we said, the parts where it doesn't hold up is more cultural stuff.
Yeah.
But as a story, as a world builder, as an introduction to a lot of characters you may already know, it holds. A lot of interesting stuff moving forward with it. I mean, we don't get a lot of stuff with Mace Windu yet. This is still...
No.
Like, Mace is in a couple scenes. And then...
Mace Windu is like, man, fuck this kid.
So no lightsaber for the man yet.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get to that one. I actually did predict that Palpatine was evil as a kid. Not knowing the context, like... I knew that there was an Emperor in the other films, because, like... But also, the Emperor in, like, 4, 5, and 6, 1 looks way older, even though played by the same man. And is hooded most of the time. Like, he's robed most of the time. And then in Phantom Menace, he's robed all the time, because I don't know why they're playing it a secret for the people that would have already known, but, like, it makes sense for a fan like me who came in with that being my first. It makes sense to play the secret. So, once again, going into the... no matter which one you start with, there's there's revealed plot twists that you spoiled. Because, like, 4, 5, and 6 spoil Palpatine, spoil Vader, spoil... But 1, 2, and 3 spoil Vader and Luke.
Yeah.
And
so, I've told you about, like, the whack order I watched these films in.
Yeah.
So I'm going in knowing that Emperor Palpatine is evil.
Yeah.
And what should I find but to my surprise that there's a guy named Palpatine in this movie. And I'm like, well, I guess you're that shady guy in the robe next to the demon man.
Except I'm pretty sure 4, 5, and 6 don't ever reference Palpatine by name.
It might have been because, like, my family had also watched them. And they gave me that information. And my child brain just was like, oh, either that or the guy standing, like I said, next to the weird devil man is probably evil.
But yeah, 4, 5, and 6 never say... I think they don't ever say Palpatine by name. I think they say the Emperor, and then that's it.
Yeah.
And so, actually, yeah, I can confirm that because, people argue about how, like, the movie should give us all the information. Why should there be supplementary material where we learn the other information? Because that's how Star Wars has always been. That's how we know Palpatine's name.
And I'm like...
But yeah, so, like... One, I didn't know that information going into 1, obviously. But even after I watched 4, 5, and 6 after 1, I kind of figured... I kind of put 2 and 2 together that... Oh, that shady man with the hood that's hanging out with Darth Maul. Probably this guy who looks like he's nice and wants to become buddy with Anakin for some reason, even though Anakin's a 9-year-old. Which we're gonna have a discussion about.
Wild.
We're gonna have a discussion about that with an upcoming comic. You know how I've heavily promoted Obi-Wan and Anakin comic? That we're gonna talk about that topic when we get to that comic, which is this season.
Why do we keep letting this old politician man hang around us in the
temple?
temple?
Hang around this child.
Yeah.
Alone and unsupervised. Yeah.
Why do we keep doing this? Said the Jedi Order. I'm like,
because he's the space president. We can't really say no.
Yeah. I mean, technically we could.
It would just look bad.
Yeah.
It looks bad either way.
Can you imagine if, like, they just told him to fuck off as soon as he showed up?
But yeah, so...
The crazy thing to say to the president of the Galactic Senate.
I think for the most part we talked about, like, the big stuff, and we talked about everything that's really, like, what made The Phantom Menace good. I think The Phantom Menace is a film that, if you like Star Wars, and you haven't, for some reason, checked it out, check it out. I'd say... Honestly, I recommend all the movies.
Watch it. Come to your own conclusions.
Yeah. You may love Jar Jar. You may find him annoying. I think he is fun, but I think his most fun versions are when we hit the Clone Wars show. Like, I think they finally figured out how to do the humor for Jar Jar once we did the Clone Wars show. But that's it for this.
Jar Jar is bluffing his way through this entire movie. Not competently, but it's enough.
But yeah, thank you all for watching today's episode of Escape Reality Star. Oh, let's rate it, I guess. It's so weird to rate this movie, though. Like, it's not
8.5, I'm done.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 8.5 with you. Like, it's just weird to rate this movie, because it's like one of those...
Been out for so long.
Well, not even that. It's also like, I feel like everybody has their opinion on Star Wars, especially The Phantom Menace. And so, like, it feels weird, because no matter where on the scale, it's gonna feel weird. But yeah, I'll go with you there. But yeah, thank you all for watching today's episode of Escape Reality Star Wars Talk. I've been your host, Caleb. Be sure to like, comment, follow, subscribe to us. You can find us at Escape Reality Films on YouTube, Twitch, Kick, and TikTok. You can also show your support for us by joining our Patreon, which is at Escape Reality Films. Shout out to Jennifer Brantley.
Thank you.
There you can watch our YouTube content before it is publicly available. Currently, we still have our episodes of Grim Hollow Boom Boys up there for the D&D campaigns. And then... I think we still have one episode of Acquisitions Incorporated up there. And yeah, so you can watch our content there before anyone else for only $5 a month. I also, and so I think that's it for group Patreon, unless there's anything else on Patreon that I can think of. No. You can also find me on Twitter at EscapeReality94 and Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Caleb.Lockwood. Speaking of D&D, though.
Yeah, just had to check something.
Oh, yeah, to see if there was a game tomorrow?
No, I know there's going to be a game tomorrow. You can catch me and some friends of ours over at the Steam Dungeon from 5 to 7 Central Standard Time every Sunday afternoon. Whew, so we're currently fighting with a cardinal of, like, Sun Church, and it is not going in our favor. Kyari died. He got better because of wild magic. I've been knocked the fuck out 3-4 times now. I'm still alive, but, like, fucking Christ. Almost there. Almost done. I have sent instructions ahead, since I'm not going to be able to make it to tomorrow's game, but Keontae has them, so cool. It's all good.
So,
because that's something for fellow D&D players. If you're not going to be able to make it to a game, just send some instructions ahead of time. It's very helpful.
Otherwise, you end up just taking a nap.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if y'all want to be ahead of even the player on what's going on tomorrow, check it out.
I don't know what'll happen.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Once again, thank you all for watching. Join us next week as we talk about Star Wars: The High Republic, Escape from Valo. We actually got a copy on time for once. Because like I said, I was reading it. I picked it up at Books A Million Thursday and started reading it already. So, that's next week's topic, which is the first junior novel of Phase 3.
All right.
So, have a good one. I have spoken.
Later. Be safe.